Hi, my name is Matthew Ofker, and I'm in Dr. Colonna's RCO 215 Global Social Issues class. And recently, we just learned about UNCG's history, which includes, the LGBTQ, and, just where we began with everything in our history. One of the first questions that Dr. Colonna asks us to reflect on is describe your UNCG event and the three perspectives you read about. I really enjoyed learning this history about UNCG. Not only does it surface more in-depth information about our history, but it elaborates more than what the PowerPoint presentations present to us. Our three perspectives include Anne Vernon, Chancellor Gordon W. Blackwell, and Clarence L. Harris. The reading I had included Chancellor Gordon W. Blackwell, and it was actually a very, very interesting article to read about because it had so many different perspectives, and having a student tell the story about the chancellor and his speech and his point of views was very interesting to see, because that's not something I ever would have ever thought about. The reading I had, since it included Gordon W. Blackwell, in that reading it explains how he gave a speech for all students at college campuses. After the speech, the newspapers rewrote his speech and twisted his words in such ways that made it sound like Blackwell opposed the freedom of speech for students, not only for UNCG but other college campuses. They twisted his words and made it seem like the speech was opposed. However, this was not the case. The speech was limited within the UNCG campus, which means anyone from other universities were excluded and believed the chancellor opposed the freedom of speech. The student that was explaining this perspective elaborated on how all the students that were actually there that attended the conference could clearly see how it was much different from what the newspaper was talking about. Which brings me to my next question of how does this event make you think about UNCG's history and what I learned so far from our previous weeks. And I'd like to say that reading these articles really make me interested to learn more about UNCG's history. I think UNCG history has a lot of variety that's important to us as students. Our knowledge of UNCG history is important to us to know as students of this university, because I feel like it helps us connect more to the origin of the campus, which makes us value our education a little bit more than we would have if we didn't know about these things and how we got here. But that's just me personally. It might be different for, somebody else. Everybody's views are different. I think it's important for students to get hands-on experience and to be in different settings when learning things as important as this. I feel it enhances our ability as students to expand our mind more than just having a standstill experience. Because me personally, I feel like if I was just in the classroom and I was just having these presentations presented to us about UNCG's history, it's not as interesting, and it doesn't really make me as engaged to wanting to know more about the history of UNCG. That's just me personally. I really enjoy going to the archives because it gives me hands-on experience. And I'm all about hands-on experience. I feel like I learn better with hands-on experience. The other thing is, how does this connect to ideas in RCO 215? So, some of our foundational theorists for RCO 215 would be a DJ, MLK, and Maxine Greene. I feel as if these articles and learning experience relates to a DJ by talking about how you see things from more than one perspective, especially with the Chancellor as one of my articles, which is a great example. I just think it's a perfect example because you can only see one side of the story, and since Blackwell gave a speech and it was twisted in words from the newspapers, it really just gave perspectives for those students who weren't able to attend that conference on that day. So they were only able to relate to what was being told to them through the newspaper. There's always more than one side of the story to it, and the student that was writing that article explains that she was there and explains how she knew that the newspaper switched up what the chancellor was talking about. They can also relate to MLK by using education to create change. That is why our history is so important to know, we can see the responsibilities of our students at UNCG to create change, which is the reason why we are where we are now. Because as students of UNCG, we are taught to, you know, be more open with our education and use education is power. The one way to take away someone's power is by taking away their education. And that's what Dr. Colonna has always preached to us, and I completely 100% agree. Excuse me. They can also relate to Maxine Greene by thinking about the impossible. Think about it. At the time, these students couldn't predict the future outcomes of what was going on in that time being. And with that said, you know, if I was in their shoes, it's just, I feel like if you think about the impossible, nothing's impossible. You know, I grew up thinking about all these things that were, you know, impossible, but it just never was. You have to make it possible. And by doing that, you have to use your education, and you have to be more open-minded, which relates back to Adichie and MLK, which will, you know, allow you to make the impossible possible. And with all that being said, this concludes my reflection for the experiences with UNCG history and my hands-on experience. And overall, I really enjoyed this experience, and I think it's very necessary, for the future students at UNCG that are taking these kind of courses. Thank you.